You know, I have stuff about SAT and ACT testing, because I know y'all just said y'all are doing that today. So as you kind of prepare to take the real deal thing, just make sure to go and check those out. I also have resources for seniors, especially since we're pretty early in the college application process and scholarship application process now. I encourage you to go and just look into that stuff. I have a bunch of different videos kind of outlining my strategies. I was admitted into 13 universities, including Duke, so Rice, Vanderbilt, UVA, WashU, Emory, UT Austin. The list kind of goes on. So I kind of have a good handle on what is expected of you, college application process, and how you can kind of get into those higher education schools. In addition to all of that, this just extends to everybody on this call. I mean, I have information, videos created about how to actually study, what it means to learn, how to best manage your time, all things that are just like fundamental academic strategies that I think a lot of people tend to take for granted. I kind of have a nice portfolio of that information on there as well. But what we're going to be talking about today is a new favorite topic of mine, which is communication and why that's so important, and how we can really how it extends beyond just academic environment, but really just in a social setting, in when you guys enter the workforce, or maybe if you have a job now, how you can kind of incorporate all of these strategies into that. Now, unfortunately, I can't be there with you guys in person, so we're just gonna have to make do with this virtual atmosphere. And kind of how I want to kickstart things and get you guys thinking in the right direction is to ask for some audience participation here in terms of what is communication, what does it mean, and why is it important? So kind of do a little free share, just unmute, and I want to hear your thoughts.
I think communication is connecting with others and letting people know like what's going on. Basically, like just being involved. I think that's what communication is.
Okay, yeah, good answer. Anybody else want to share, or are we going with that?
I think it just means like just conveying meanings to different people.
Yeah, I love that definition. So that is kind of along the line. Both of those were great definitions, but yeah, that the second one really kind of gets along the lines of what I was about to say, which is communication is a way of expressing yourself and in a meaningful way, right? So conveying the meaning that you guys were saying. But the thing is communication is not universally human, right? Pets communicate with their owners, animals in the wild communicate with one another, you know, birds in the sky communicate with one another. Communication is not something that's just limited to people. Another thing about communication is that it's more than just talking, right? We can convey meaning with our words on a piece of paper when we're writing and expressing ourselves in that manner. We can also convey meaning and express ourselves via body language, right? And so all of those three components of communication really work together with the intent of allowing other people to form assumptions and form impressions about us, right? So when we walk into a room and, you know, we're carrying ourselves a certain way, we're talking a certain way, maybe, you know, we've written something a certain way, all of those things really marry together and attest to our level of confidence, right? You know, does this person, you know, if it kind of quells any doubts that somebody might have about whether you deserve to be in that space, kind of fake it till you make it type of thing, where you act like you're supposed to be there, you talk like you're supposed to be there, nobody's gonna doubt you, right? Your communication and the way you present yourself also really speaks to your credibility. So hopefully you guys are feeling like, just in the 2-3 minutes I've been talking to you guys right now, hopefully I'm expressing myself in a clear and articulate enough manner that you're like, okay, you know, that along with, okay, she's at Duke, like she got a 1540, whatever, that I'm credible, right? That maybe you should be paying attention to what I'm saying and listening, because I might have some important information to share, right? Communication also attests to just the likability of somebody. If you're, you know, very cruel and crude in the way that you're coming across to somebody, or you don't really have this warmth about you, people are probably not going to want to spend time around you, right? So the way that you're expressing yourself in that aspect as well can just give people insight and intel into whether they even want to be friends with you or be around you, right? I also want to say that communication is more than, it's a two-way street, right? It involves one person expressing themselves, whether that's, via vocally, whether that's written, whether that's body language. And it also involves another party doing some sort of perceiving of that communication, right? Because if I'm just talking and nobody's listening, that communication no longer has any sort of meaning. But that communication takes on meaning once people on the receiving end of my words, my body language, etc., once those people are actually interacting with whatever it is that I am expressing. And usually that is by listening, right? So now I want to ask you guys another question. What is the difference between listening to what somebody is saying, or, kind of listening to what somebody is doing, being perceptive in that aspect, versus hearing? So I want to hear from you guys. What's the difference between those, listening versus hearing?
Oh, y'all should be able to answer that one.
I think, okay,
They
so
do it to me all the time. They do it to me all the time.
But I think the difference between listening versus hearing, usually when somebody is hearing somebody, it's probably going in one ear and out the other. But when you're listening, you're actually retaining the information that they're giving you and paying attention.
You know what, Tatiana? I could have said it better myself. You want to do this presentation? You got this down. Yes. Okay. I don't even need to ask anybody else. That was it. That was on point.
Merits for you. Merits for you.
That was beautifully said. So yeah, basically hearing involves information going in one ear and out the other. It's just noise at that point, right? It doesn't involve any sort of processing. It doesn't even involve you paying any sort of mind or attention to whatever it is that's happening in the background. Listening, in contrast, really involves this deeper level of processing and perceiving and comprehending, really trying to construe some sort of meaning from whatever it is that you've just heard, right? So that's kind of that difference. Hopefully, in you guys' classes that you're engaging in a level of listening and not hearing, or else your grades are probably reflective of what your habits are. So anyways, moving on past that, we've established what communication is, we've established why it's important, and we've established that it's a two-way street. Now, before I continue, what I want to do is ask you guys, because this is going to determine how I kind of what I cut out of the presentation and what I don't. Are you guys a chatty class where you want time to ask me questions at the end? I mean, I'll do like momentary pauses in between as we kind of transition from section to section and check in with you guys. But would you guys want an opportunity at the end, like kind of free question and answer, or not really? And maybe y'all can give a thumbs up to Miss Jones, because I can't see y'all, so like she can kind of tell me what the poll says. Yes to Q&A is a thumbs up. No to Q&A, and just kind of like as we go, we'll just check in about questions.
So am I looking for a thumbs up, thumbs down, or in between?
So you're looking for more thumbs up than not thumbs up. That will tell me that we do a Q&A at the end, so I'll set aside time for that.
Okay, so if you put thumbs down, go ahead and put your hand down. Just do a thumbs up if you want to do a thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then thumbs down, go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's not even everybody in this class.
Can you do thumbs down again, guys? Can you like put it clearly in the camera? 1, 2, thank you, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thumbs up one more time. And it's 1. Thank you for putting it in the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ha.
Wow, that's really funny. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll set like, what do you think, Miss Jones? Like, given that it's a split, like 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine.
10 minutes. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you guys for your feedback in that aspect. So anyways, we are going to be moving on to the next component of this chat, and that is going to be how communication shows up in your college and scholarship application essays. So seniors and juniors in particular, I need you to be listening, like really listening right now, because this is definitely very applicable to what you guys are immediately experiencing. So question for my seniors, what is the purpose of these essays, these personal statements that you're submitting? What are college admissions committees wanting to get out of reading your essays? What's the purpose of that?
Basically, like who you are as a person and like what makes you special so that they can accept you into their school.
Beautiful, Trinity. Yes. So basically, these essays are just a way for these colleges, for these scholarship admissions committees to get to know you beyond what your numbers are saying. So your numbers, I'm talking GPA, I'm talking SAT, ACT score, AP score, like whatever statistical information that you're submitting, they want to get to know you beyond that. They want to see that you're an actual story and not just a statistic, right? They want to see, just like Trinity said, what makes you special, but not just that, what makes you human, right? And so what is the background that shapes who you are that you're going to be bringing into these classroom spaces? What perspectives do you bring to the table? What drives you? What motivates you? What makes you vulnerable? What makes you, what do you identify as your weakness and how are you dealing with it? What are the experiences that you've had that have shaped you into a stronger person as a result? So that's really what these essays are trying to tap into. But I know that a challenge, and this is just speaking from personal experience, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, a challenge that we face in writing these essays is, okay, I've lived for 18 years at this point, probably 17, 18 years, my seniors. And I've just had so many experiences. What do I talk about? What do they want to hear? What's the best thing to put on this page that encapsulates my essence, who I am, right? So what I say in response to that is I kind of have a little bit of a sniff test. So, I don't know if you guys know what I mean when I say a sniff test, but basically, especially here in college, I'm not going outside all the time. This is COVID. I'm like, okay, I've worn this jacket for the past few days. Okay, I probably can put it on for another day. We're good. It doesn't stink or anything. So the sniff test means it passes. That means, okay, let me go ahead and submit this essay. So what's the sniff test for this? Well, your essay should be two things. Number one, your story, whatever it is that you're writing about, should be compelling and captivating enough to pique your reader's interest. Okay? I'm going to set the scene for you guys, and I want you to imagine this. These people are literally getting thousands of papers and applications crossing their desk hour after hour, minute after minute, whatever. And you want, when they get to your application, your essay, your profile, for them to be like, whoa, that just woke me up. I was feeling dead. It's only 9 a.m., but I'm still feeling dead. And this paper, the words on there just, I'm hanging, I want more. I'm craving to meet this person, which leads me into my second part of the sniff test, which is your words should be so interesting, should give the reader such a wake-up call that they're like, man, I am ready to get this person right here in front of me right now on this campus. That's how badly I want to just put a face, a name to this profile. So those are the two things that you really need to be thinking at the back of your mind when you're writing these essays, because the unfortunate thing is that you actually can't be physically in the room to advocate for yourself. So your words really need to be carrying that powerful, powerful punch. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you guys when you're really trying to discern what it is that you should be talking about in these essays is, do you embody the ideal applicant, right? These colleges, these scholarships, they have this profile of the person that they're looking for. Yeah, they want diversity. Yeah, they want diversity. But the thing is there are these common characteristics that they want across all of their students. Now, I don't want to necessarily limit this question to students, so really anybody can answer this. What do you think are those common characteristics that scholarships and colleges, especially the highly selected ones, what are they looking for? There's probably no wrong answer, so just feel free to say something.
I think they're looking for leadership skills. They're looking for a strong-minded person. They're looking for somebody who has passion for something. They're looking for somebody who just wants to be successful and trying their best to succeed.
Brittany, you're on fire today. Yes. So yeah, they're looking for leaders. They're looking for ambitious people with aspirations. No, you don't have to have your life figured out, but you need to be striving for something, whether that's, to address some sort of problem you've identified in the world, whether that's to become a doctor, a lawyer, a pharmaceutical sales rep, whatever it is, you need to have some sort of long-term goal. They want to see that you're goal oriented. They want to see that you have leadership skills. They want to see that you're service oriented, that you have done things in your life that have shown that you care about the betterment of human society, about the betterment. Hold on, this sun is blinding me. Okay, they want to see that you care about the betterment of society and that you want to help people in some way. So that's another thing that for my seniors that are writing college essays, for my juniors that are probably looking at scholarship stuff, and I'm going to talk about my freshmen and my sophomores in a minute. But for you guys, when you're crafting these essays, those are the experiences that you need to be talking about. When you're like, man, I just feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to write about. Write about something that is going to showcase the qualities that you possess that align with whatever it is that college, that scholarship, whatever they're looking for. What do they place value on? And you can usually find that information on, their website. Is really the best place, brochures or anything like that. Now, my sophomores and my freshmen, you're probably like, I don't really feel like any of this applies to me. Like, why does this matter that we're talking about essays? No, it does matter because now you know what the secret key is to when you actually get to that point. You can start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to eventually have to write about experiences in which I talk about leadership, I talk about being service oriented, I talk about having a plan and being goal oriented. So how can I shape my experiences now while I still have time? Unfortunately, juniors and seniors are on a ticking time clock. It's like, whoa, I'm at senioritis at this point, maybe. I don't really have another opportunity to get plugged into a club or XYZ, but freshmen and sophomores, you do. So you can start looking for leadership opportunities, looking for opportunities to get involved in your community so that later on down the line, you're not racking your brain and being like, I don't have anything to talk about, right? So I want you to be thinking about that as well. Now, another thing that I want to get into with these essays that I really think everybody can benefit from is, and this is just writing in general, right? So I want to make sure that this is applicable to my younger students on the call, and that is when you're writing, there's this tendency that humans have to really get so invested in their words that they forget that to fully explain themselves, right? They forget that their reader is not inside of their head. And so what I mean by that is we have this tendency to maybe leave out details or to forget to contextualize because it's like, it's self-explanatory. That person will get it or whatever. But no, especially with your teachers and your colleges and your scholarships, or really when you're submitting an essay to anybody, nobody knows you, nobody's in your head, nobody can read your mind. So I need you guys to be super, super intentional moving forward in any writing assignment that you are, do, to make sure to fully articulate whatever is on your mind. Explain it from A to Z. Make sure to connect all of those dots. Make sure that there is coherency in whatever it is that you're saying, and never assume that the other person will get it. Because most likely, if they're not your friend, your family members or whatever, and even sometimes your family and friends don't get it, you need to make sure that you're fully flushing out every single thing so that person is not left to make assumptions, right? So that's that, like I said, that's really applicable to not just college essays and scholarship essays, but writing in general. Now, for the sake of time, what we're going to do is transition a little bit into, we talked a little bit about writing, kind of what goes into that, and if we want to circle back to that information at the end during the Q&A, we can do that. But what I want to move on to now is interviews, kind of this verbal component of communication. And I really love talking about interviews, so this is going to be fun. Apparently, I love talking about everything, though, because my energy is still going to be high. But anyways, so interviews. I want to hear from somebody right now. What is the purpose of an interview? Why do we even have those? And I want to hear from somebody other than Trinity. Trinity, as much as I love your responses, let's hear some other classmates. I need to make sure you guys are engaged.
So you said what's the purpose for interview and stuff? Yeah. To show like your ability, to show your skills and all of that. Tell people about yourself, You got it. You hit it on the money. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with that one. So basically, the purpose of an interview is to talk about yourself, to prove really who you say you are. And interviews are going to be kind of that next phase in the process. So when you're applying for a job, you're going to have to submit an application or a resume. And then they're like, okay, our interest is piqued.
let me bring them in for an interview. So at that point, and this goes for college as well, usually you're going to get an interview after you've already submitted your application. Sometimes it's a little bit out of order with that stuff because maybe they haven't read your application by the time you get an interview. But what I like to say is that interviews are your time to walk the talk, or kind of really walk the walk, or whatever you want, however you want to say it. The point is you're proving who you say you are, especially the way you're talking about yourself in your essays and in your writing and on your resume. So if you are somebody that's exhibiting all of these leadership skills in, you know, this essay that you're crafting, right? And then you show up to this interview and you're just like real meek and mild, and you know, you just seem like really apathetic about life, and you don't show any sort of initiative, that's gonna be a red flag. Somebody's gonna be like, are they really a leader? Because I just wasn't getting those vibes, right? So that's what an interview is about, proving who you say you are. Who are you? Other thing I want to get into with interviews is a pretty common question that you're going to be asked, and it's usually framed as a statement, is, tell me about yourself. That's probably the first question that you can expect. And I've literally had 2 interviews, one last week and one this week. I'm applying for this program here. That's the first thing they said. Tell me about yourself, Mackenzie. And I hate that question. As easy as it is, it's also very hard because it's so vague. Like, what do you want to know? There are so many dimensions of our personality, of our life, of our experiences. What do you even want me to talk about, right? And so people's approach to this really varies. Some people talk about their family life, I come from a single parent household, or, I'm biracial, so I might bring up that or something like that. Other people talk about their passion, maybe an experience that they've had that have shaped their passion for a particular cause, right? Other people talk about their skills. Well, okay, I'll tell you about myself. I'm hardworking, I'm determined, I'm responsible, whatever, right? So we have all of these different approaches. And if you are the type that really likes to, if you're like me, I like to drill down. And I might even ask the interviewer, well, is there a particular thing that you want to know, or a particular part of who I am that you'd like me to shed light on? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I want you to talk about, what you've done this past year. Other times they're like, no, you really have free reign, just go for it, right? And so in those situations, kind of the golden rule of thumb that I like to advise is, you can never go wrong by just highlighting the qualities that you possess and the experiences that you've had. So a little bit of both, right? The qualities that you possess, the experiences that you've had that make you a good fit position, right? So marrying whatever it is about you, well, I worked at a previous, if you're applying for a job, I worked at a previous company, I had to be really proficient at Microsoft Word and blah, blah, blah. And that's going to help me in this job. And that's going to set me up for success here because of X, Y, Z. So really showing, okay, I have the skills and this is why it's going to prove really successful for me in a particular environment, at the college, in the program, in the job, whatever. So keeping that in mind, but also knowing that when you're talking, when you're giving your elevator pitch or whatever, and this applies to any answer that you provide in an interview, make sure that you are detailed enough, but also that you are succinct. And so I know that's a little bit of an oxymoron, so I'm going to elaborate on what I mean. The thing is you want to avoid rambling, okay? So especially when you're talking about yourself and you're doing hey, tell me about yourself, tell me who you are, right? You don't want to be sitting there talking for 4 minutes. Don't you think they have other questions to ask you? And also by that point, human attention is very limited, right? We get distracted. And if you're just sitting there talking, that person's gonna be like, we can move on. Like, I haven't even heard half the stuff that you just said, right? So keeping your little elevator pitch is what I like to call it. And it's not, I didn't invent the word elevator pitch, so I don't want you to think I'm taking credit for that. But elevator pitch is what it's commonly called, is a second spiel. Prior to showing up at this interview, you should already have an idea of what you're going to say about yourself. You can expect that question. So don't rehearse your response in advance. Definitely don't do that. You don't want to seem robotic, but you want to make sure that you have a mental roadmap of what you're going to be talking about so that you can keep your response super concise, right? And like I said, that goes with other questions that you're answering in the interview. When people are talking, what's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? Make sure provide context to whatever it is that you're saying. Take this person on a journey. Tell them a story, but also be mindful of the cues that they're giving you. Are they like, when you're talking, are they sitting back and like looking bored? Because that might be a sign that you need to stop talking and check in with the person. Hey, have I lost you or whatever? Read the body language. If it doesn't look like they're engaged, that means you need to cut it off and turn the floor over to them. If you're on the phone and you can't see them, what I like to do is, because I tend to be a little bit long-winded, is I'll check in with the person. Hey, you know, I know I've been talking for a while. I want to hear your input, or I want to, you know, see what you have to say on X, Y, Z. So making sure that you're checking in and you're not losing sight of the question is also really important, because if you get on this random tangent and you don't even end up answering what they've asked, that's going to be an issue, right? A final thing that I want to talk about in regards to interviews, like I said, because I'm monitoring the time here, is just your body language, right? So like I said, this is the way that you're presenting yourself, the way that you're carrying yourself it says a lot about who you are. It says a lot about your confidence. So in an interview, and I want you guys to maybe practice this right now. I can't see you, so no shame in that game, is to make sure that you're sitting up. Right? When you're across the table from somebody, or even when you're doing some sort of virtual thing, because that's how things are in the time of COVID, is making sure that you're sitting up. You're not slouched. You're not doing all this where your head's down, or you're like looking at the person like this and you're looking bored or whatever. Is going to be super, super important to show, hey, I'm confident, I'm engaged, and I'm attentive right now. Right? You also want to make sure that your facial expressions throughout the interview are warm and inviting, and you're smiling. Right? Now, I have a really bad habit. I'm going to just be forthright here, is when I'm listening to what somebody's saying, and maybe you guys have noticed this when you've been answering questions, is I have a tendency to just like scrunch up my eyebrows because I'm like focusing so intently, but it's not a very nice face that I'm making. I look like I'm angry with you. So I have to be very mindful of that. And that's why I'm telling you guys, just, you know yourself, you know your body, making sure that you're smiling and, you know, you seem inviting and you seem like a kind person. Nobody wants to be around somebody that's not very nice, right? Also, another big thing is eye contact. I know it's hard and now I'm like super self-conscious about my eyebrows because I can feel them going in. But anyways, so I know that it's hard to do the whole eye contact thing, especially in a virtual environment, but I'm trying right now to make an effort to like look at the camera, because that's a lot better than just, you know, looking down. You'd probably be like, where is she looking? Who is she talking to down there? Right? Or when you're in person with somebody, it's sort of disrespectful and off-putting if somebody's talking to you, you're just like looking off, you know, you're just like looking to the side, you're not looking at that person, right? Also, I mean, this probably goes without saying, but if you're kind of like looking off and whatever, that makes you look a little shifty and shady and a little suspicious. If my eyes are just like moving around and I'm not even like looking you in the face, people are probably like, what is going on over there? So making sure that you're just locking in with that person when they're talking to you, right? Some other things that I want you to just take into account and be mindful of in these interviews is that you're leaning in slightly. Now, I'm not telling you to just be like really hanging on to their word and just like being obsessive about it, but just a slight lean in shows that person that you're paying attention, that you're engaged in this conversation. You'd probably much prefer for somebody when they're talking to you to be a little bit leaned in than all the way back here, just like, you know, looking like they don't even give a care about whatever is coming out of your mouth, right? Also, another thing that just shows that you're engaged is slightly nodding your head, right? Now, I'm not telling you to like do all this like where it looks very unnatural. It should come natural. When you're understanding somebody and, you know, whatever they're saying is floating your boat, we have a tendency to nod along and give that person a little bit of confirmation that, yeah, continue on this route. I'm with you. I'm hanging on. Take me on this journey, right? And the last thing that I want you guys to be mindful of is nervous behavior, right? So some of us might have a tendency where we maybe play with our hair a little bit, or, you know, we bounce our legs up and down when we're nervous or whatever, or, you know, we may be like playing with our rings or whatever you have, maybe a piece of jewelry. So if you're somebody that's a fidgeter with your hands, make sure to just cross them in front of you and keep them locked, because that can make your interviewer feel tense and stressed if you're just like doing all these nervous, fidgety behaviors, and it's like, whoa, are they okay there, right? So, and also same thing with your legs. Just if you feel like you're nervous, I'm crossing my legs now, but you can't even see. I was trying to do an example, right? But crossing your legs under the table to prevent yourself from doing any sort of nervous down there. So other than that, those are kind of the things I want you to be really mindful of. As I said, your body language communicates a lot just about who you are and can give people kind of insight into your personality in that aspect. Now, On a, because like I said, I know I'm running out of time a little bit here. I want to give you guys a little bit of important information as it pertains to just like sending emails, right? So this is another form of communication, another way that people form impressions and make assumptions about you, especially if you're emailing somebody for the first time. And I think this is a really important topic because you're going to be sending emails for the rest of your life, right? Even if you decide to not go to college or not get a job, you're probably going to end up sending an email to somebody if you haven't already, right? So let's go ahead and kind of crank out what are the need to know strategies about that? Because I think a lot of people tend to go wrong. So the first thing that I want to say is ask yourself whether email is even appropriate given the context of the situation, right? Sometimes it's just easier to pick up the phone and call them. If you have a bunch of questions that you need to ask somebody, nobody wants to read all of that in an email where you're just like asking them 20 things and they're like, I don't have the time for this. Just pick up the phone and call, and that'll make your life and their life a heck of a ton easier, right? Also, just knowing that if it's a very serious matter, sometimes email meaning can really get lost or things can be misconstrued, right? So like I said, if it's a very serious matter and you might have a very curt tone, that other person might be like, whoa, are they angry? Because like, I don't really like the way that's coming across. Versus if you just pick up the phone and they can hear your voice and hear those words coming out differently, that can make all the difference in the world. So just assessing the context and saying, what form of communication is even appropriate here? A phone call, maybe an in-person meeting, maybe an email. I don't know. That depends on the context. That depends on kind of what you assess on your end. Now, another thing is in your emails, especially to your teachers, to your superiors, get to the point, okay? Nobody is trying to read an essay in an email. So that means avoid the flowery writing, avoid all the fluff, and just say, hi, have your greeting, hello, whatever, and get right to it. The reason I'm reaching out is because of X, Y, Z. If you do that and you get right to the meat, that person is more likely to send you a quicker, more speedy response versus if they're like having to sift through and figure out what you're asking and they're like, why is this person talking about this? I don't even think this email has anything to do with X, Y, Z. Just get to the point. Cut to the chase, okay? Like I said, that kind of goes along the lines of just being brief, simple, and also not asking too many questions. Imagine when you're just texting your buddy. If your buddy sends you an essay in text and you're like having to scroll and they're asking you all this, you're probably like, girl, boy, just like FaceTime me or something, or like call me. I don't want to read all this. Your people that you're emailing, they also don't want to read all that. Okay. Another thing that I want you to do when you're just working on emails in general is just paying attention to your formatting, right? So this extends beyond, your font type, which you want to make sure you're keeping it simple. Just do the normal like Sanskrit or Times New Roman or whatever. You want to be mindful of your text size. My opinion, the bigger the better, easier on the eyes, right? You also want to make sure that you're breaking up your stuff into paragraphs, right? You don't want to have just this huge block of text and somebody that's going to turn somebody off versus if you have, maybe 2 paragraphs, 4 sentences each or whatever. And also the other thing is formatting in terms of putting your most important information at the beginning of your email. Usually we're creatures that we want to get to it. And usually somebody's more likely to pay attention to whatever you have in your little intro than versus by the time that they get to the end, especially if it's long, they're going to be checked out and they probably won't even register with them. So put the important stuff right there at the beginning. And also, kind of as we wind it down, because I do want to leave time for questions, for those of you who said that you want to pick my brain a little bit, is tone, okay? And this goes not just emails, but this also goes to when you are talking to somebody, knowing your audience, right? The way you talk to your friend is gonna be, hopefully, gonna be different from when you're talking to your teacher, right? So when you're talking to your teacher, you're probably not gonna be, you're going to have a more formal and professional air about you, and you're not going to be casual, right? So with your superiors, they're not your buddies. You're not going to be joking around with them.
Wait a minute. I gotta tell her. Hold on one second. Excuse me, Mackenzie.
Yes.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. There's a fire alarm going on. The fire alarm is going off. I gotta exit the building. So I mean,
Go ahead. I guess we'll have to.
Gotta get to practice. So I think they probably have like 5 more minutes or so.
Okay, I mean, you guys probably need to go and deal with the fire alarm. So I guess I'll have to cut this kind of short. I did enjoy talking to you guys though, and please, if you have any questions, I put my website in the chat box. So there's a contact page on there, and I can also have Ms. Jones send it out to you guys.
And I did record this for you, just for your records.
Lovely. Oh yes, can you send that
I'm
to
sure
me?
your professor would love that.
Yes, and please send me the